The night he demanded I apologize to his best friend, I smiled because hidden in my forgotten account was $60,000 no one knew existed. He thought he'd cornered me, forced me to kneel and beg forgiveness from the woman who'd been sharing our marriage bed. But while he rehearsed his victory speech, I'd already hired the lawyer, gathered the evidence, and bought my freedom overnight. Tonight, I would apologize, just not the way he expected. My name is Lauren Hale, and until 6 months ago, I believed my marriage was built on bedrock. 5 years with Ethan Ward had felt like breathing natural, necessary, unquestionable. I designed brand identities at Mariner and Wren Studios in downtown Cedar Ridge while he managed operations at Riverton Freight Systems. We were the couple who still held hands at grocery stores, who left notes in each other's lunch bags, who friends called disgustingly perfect. Then Bianca Rhodes walked back into our lives. My best friend from college, Ethan had announced that September evening, his voice pitched with an excitement I hadn't heard in months. "She's moving back to Cedar Ridge. You'll love her." I wanted to love her. God, I tried. Bianca arrived at our first dinner together wearing a cream silk blouse that whispered money, her laugh perfectly calibrated to charm without seeming eager. She was everything I wasn't tall where I was average, polished where I was comfortable, mysterious where I was transparent. Her handshake was firm, professional, but her eyes held something else when they swept over me. The look of someone cataloging an obstacle. "Ethan's told me everything about you," she said, though her tone suggested whatever he'd shared hadn't been particularly memorable. The changes started small. Tuesday lunches that ran 2 hours instead of 1. "Bianca needs help settling in," Ethan explained, though she'd been in town 3 weeks by then. Text messages at 11:30 at night, midnight, 1 in the morning. "Work stuff," he'd mutter, angling his phone away from me. Inside jokes that bloomed between them like flowers I hadn't planted, references to professors I'd never heard of, bars that had closed before I'd met him, a version of Ethan that existed before I did and apparently still lived somewhere beneath his skin. "Remember that time with Professor Morrison?" Bianca would laugh, and Ethan would light up like a struck match while I sat there, smiling at nothing, understanding less. She got a spare key to our house within 2 months. "For emergencies," Ethan said, though what emergency required Bianca's immediate entry, he never specified. I found her coffee mug in our dishwasher on days she supposedly hadn't visited. Her perfume, something French and aggressive, lingered in our hallway like an accusation. The night that should have been our anniversary dinner was when I first felt the ground shift beneath me. I'd made reservations at the Meridian, worn the black dress Ethan bought me in Chicago, even splurged on professional makeup. We were halfway through appetizers when his phone buzzed. "Sorry, I need to take this," he said, already standing. "It's Bianca. It's our anniversary dinner. She's having a crisis with Victor." Her husband's name always sounded like an afterthought in Ethan's mouth. 5 minutes, I promise. 20 minutes later, I ate my entree alone while our waiter avoided eye contact. When Ethan returned, he didn't apologize, just picked up his fork like nothing had cracked between us. "You're being dramatic," he said when I finally voiced my concerns the next morning. "She's going through a rough patch. I'm trying to be a good friend." To her or to me. That's unfair, Lauren, and honestly, a little juvenile. Juvenile. The word stuck in my throat for days. Was it juvenile to notice how he showered before their lunches, how he'd started using cologne I didn't recognize, how he deleted text threads but left just enough messages to seem transparent? "You're paranoid," he told me when I mentioned the deleted messages. "This jealousy thing isn't attractive." "I'm not jealous. I'm concerned." "About what? That I have a female friend, that I'm not spending every second focused on you?" His voice had taken on that patient tone, like he was explaining physics to a child. "This is about your insecurities, not my friendship with Bianca." The gaslighting was so gradual I didn't smell the fumes until I was already dizzy. Every question became evidence of my immaturity. Every observation twisted into proof of my jealousy. I started doubting my own eyes, my own instincts, writing off obvious signs as projection, insecurity, all the ugly words he'd planted in my vocabulary. Our house developed a crack that winter, a hairline fracture in the living room wall that appeared overnight and grew longer each day. Ethan said he'd fix it, but he never did. I'd stand there sometimes, tracing its path with my finger, thinking how appropriate it was. This visible thing that everyone ignored, getting worse by the day, threatening the integrity of everything around it. "You've changed," my sister told me at Christmas. "You seem smaller." I was smaller, shrinking to fit the space Ethan allowed me, careful not to overflow into territories marked for Bianca. I stopped questioning the lunches, the texts, the emergencies that always seemed to happen when we had plans. I smiled when she touched his arm at dinner parties, laughed at their inside jokes, pretended not to notice when they disappeared together at gatherings, returning separately with practiced casualness. I told myself I trusted him. I told myself right up until the moment trust became another word for willful blindness, and the truth stopped asking permission to exist. The ultimatum came on a Thursday evening in February. I was folding laundry when Ethan walked into our bedroom, arms crossed, jaw set in that way that meant he'd rehearsed whatever came next. "We need to talk about your behavior toward Bianca." I set down his Yankees t-shirt, the one I'd bought him 3 birthdays ago. "My behavior. The passive aggression, the cold shoulder, the way you barely speak when she's around." He stood straighter, like height would make his argument more convincing. "It's embarrassing, Lauren." "Embarrassing for whom?" "For everyone, but mostly for you." He moved closer, his cologne, that new scent I couldn't place, filling the space between us. "She thinks you hate her." "I don't hate her." "Then prove it." The words hung there, sharp and deliberate. I studied his face, searching for the man who used to defend me against his mother's criticisms, who once drove 3 hours to bring me soup when I had the flu. This stranger wearing his face waited, impatient. "How exactly would you like me to prove it?" "Apologize to her." The laugh escaped before I could stop it short, incredulous. "Apologize for what?" "For making her feel unwelcome, for the jealousy, for acting like a child instead of a grown woman." His voice dropped to that therapeutic tone he'd perfected lately. "Look, I understand insecurity, but projecting it onto an innocent person, that's not okay." "Innocent." I tasted the word, found it bitter. "Right. This attitude, Lauren. This is exactly what I'm talking about." He pinched the bridge of his nose, a gesture stolen from his father's playbook of disappointment. "I'm trying to save our marriage here. By demanding I apologize to your—" I caught myself before saying what we both knew she was. "To Bianca. Yes. Either you apologize to her, or we're done." The words fell like a gavel. "I won't stay married to someone who can't support my friendships." The room seemed to tilt. 5 years of morning coffee, shared dreams, whispered promises in the dark reduced to this transaction. Apologize to his mistress, or lose everything. "You're giving me an ultimatum." "I'm giving you a choice. Show some maturity and accountability, or admit this marriage isn't working." I folded the rest of his laundry in silence, each crease precise, methodical. He waited, probably expecting tears or pleas. Instead, I gave him efficiency, organizing his socks by color while my mind calculated angles he couldn't see. "When?" I finally asked. His eyebrows lifted surprise at my apparent surrender. When would you like me to apologize?" "Oh." He shifted, unprepared for easy victory. "This weekend Saturday night we could have dinner at their place." Their place. Bianca and Victor's house, where I'd be expected to perform contrition for an audience. The thought should have enraged me. Instead, it crystallized something cold and clear in my chest. "Fine, but I have conditions." "Lauren, you want an apology? You'll get one. But it happens at their house, with Victor present." I met his eyes steadily. "If I'm apologizing for my behavior toward their marriage, Shouldn't both partners be there? Something flickered across his face, uncertainty, maybe fear before he smoothed it away. That's actually mature of you. Victor should hear this. Good. Set it up. He pulled out his phone immediately, thumbs flying across the screen. The eagerness in his movements told me everything he thought he'd won, thought he'd broken me down to manageable pieces. His smile, when the confirmation came through, was the smile of a man who'd never learned the difference between winning a battle and losing a war. Saturday, 7 o'clock, he announced. Bianca's making her famous coq au vin. Perfect. I resumed folding, each motion deliberate. I should probably prepare what I'm going to say. Just speak from the heart. Tell the truth. Oh, I intend to. He kissed my forehead then, a gesture so patronizing I had to grip the laundry basket to keep steady. I'm proud of you for doing this. It shows growth. After he left for his shower 45 minutes, like always before seeing her, I sat on our bed and stared at that crack in the wall. It had spread to the ceiling now, a dark vein mapping the weakness in our foundation. Growth, I whispered to the empty room. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. You okay? You seem off lately. I typed back, I'm about to be better than okay. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. Ethan spent Friday evening coaching me on my apology, suggesting phrases, reminding me to own my jealousy and acknowledge the harm I'd caused. He spoke to me like a director coaching an actor, never realizing I'd already memorized an entirely different script. Remember, he said that night, pulling me close in bed for the first time in weeks. This is for us, for our future. I let him hold me, let him believe his own fiction while I counted hours. Somewhere across town, Bianca was probably selecting the perfect outfit for accepting my surrender. Victor was likely oblivious, trusting his wife the way I'd trusted my husband. Saturday morning arrived gray and appropriate. Ethan woke up electric with anticipation, humming in the shower, selecting his clothes with unusual care. His happiness at my impending humiliation should have hurt. Instead, it felt like evidence, another document to file away. You're quiet, he observed over breakfast. Just thinking about tonight. Don't overthink it. Simple is better. Just say you're sorry and mean it. I smiled into my coffee. Don't worry. Everyone will get exactly what they deserve. He reached across the table to squeeze my hand, his wedding ring catching the light. I knew you'd come around. Bianca means a lot to me, and having you two get along, it would mean everything. The truth was right there in his sentence structure, Bianca first, her feelings paramount, me as an afterthought contingent on compliance. I squeezed back, my own ring feeling suddenly light, insignificant. After tonight, I said, everything will be different. Better, he corrected. Everything will be better. I nodded, letting him have his word. Better was relative. Free was absolute. Wednesday afternoon, 3 days before my scheduled apology. My laptop died in the middle of a client presentation mock-up. The screen went black without warning, taking 6 hours of work with it. Ethan was at another lunch meeting with Bianca 2:15 to 4:30. Like clockwork, so I used his MacBook. Still logged into everything from when he'd worked from home Monday. I just needed to recreate my presentation. I wasn't looking for evidence. But evidence, I've learned, doesn't wait for invitations. The folder was labeled Personal Private, so bland it screamed significance. It sat 3 levels deep in his documents, tucked between tax returns and warranty PDFs. Any wife would have looked. Any human would have looked. The first photo stopped my breathing. Ethan and Bianca at Harbor Lane Bistro, her hand on his across the table, his thumb stroking her wrist. The metadata showed Tuesday, January 15th, 2:23 p.m., then Tuesday, January 22nd, 2:18 p.m., Tuesday, January 29th, 2:31 p.m., every Tuesday for 3 months, time-stamped during his client development meetings. I opened the messages back up. Their conversation thread stretched back 2 years before she'd officially moved to Cedar Ridge, before the dinner where I'd tried to love her. The evolution was all there, fossilized in blue and gray bubbles. March 2 years ago. Miss having someone who really gets me? June. Victor doesn't see me the way you do. September. Can't stop thinking about that almost kiss in college. December. If we'd just had better timing. This January, 3:47 a.m. Last night was, we should talk. 3:52 a.m. I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. 3:58 a.m. Delete these. L might check. But he hadn't deleted them. He'd archived them, password protected them, kept them like trophies. There were hundreds of messages, each one a small betrayal building toward something larger. The language shifted around November. Meeting became seeing each other. Friendship became what we have. Careful became worth the risk. I found the receipts next. Harbor Lane Bistro every Tuesday. Always 2 entrees. Always 1 check. Always paid from our joint account. January alone, $420. December, $380. November, when it started, $290. He'd been funding their affair with money I'd earned, and itemizing it like business expenses. The gifts were documented too. A Hermes scarf, $800, delivered to her office. For my favorite project partner, the note read, bottles of Chateau Margaux, 300 each, for celebrating milestones. A weekend spa package for her birthday, $1,200 from our vacation fund. Each purchase carefully justified in his personal notes, investment in important relationships, network development, strategic partnership building. I photographed everything with my phone, uploaded it to 3 different cloud services, emailed copies to an anonymous account I created for this purpose. Then I found something that made my hands shake his calendar, synced across devices. Every Tuesday, Client Development Harbor District blocked from noon to 4 p.m. Every Thursday, Operations Review from 6 to 9 p.m. Every other Saturday, Golf with Suppliers from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. I cross-referenced these with Bianca's Instagram private, but she'd accepted my follow request months ago, probably to seem less suspicious. Tuesday posts, afternoon inspiration, with photos of wine glasses and artistic food shots. Thursdays, working late but grateful for good company. Saturdays, perfect morning energy, with sunset photos that should have been sunrise if the timing were honest. The laptop's search function revealed more draft emails never sent, including one that made me screenshot immediately. B can't stop thinking about yesterday. L was asking questions, but I handled it. We need to be more careful, at least until I figure out next steps. You know you're the one The draft ended there. Saved, but never sent. Dated the day after our anniversary dinner. I printed everything at the office printer, watching pages accumulate like evidence in a trial. My coworker Janine walked by, noticed my expression. You okay, Lauren? Just dealing with some documentation, I said. And wasn't that the truth? Back home, I organized everything into labeled folders: timeline, messages, financial, photos, calendar conflicts. I created a master document showing patterns every client emergency that interrupted our plans matched with her working late posts. Every golf morning aligned with her self-care Saturday stories. They'd been hiding in plain sight, depending on my trust to blind me. The final piece came when I checked his email drafts folder. Dozens of unsent messages to her, each one a confession he lacked courage to send. I think about leaving her. You make me feel like myself again. Victor's lucky. He doesn't deserve you. Sometimes I forget why I'm still married. The last draft was from yesterday. After Saturday, everything changes. She'll apologize, you'll forgive her, and we can stop pretending this is just friendship. I sat back in his desk chair, surrounded by proof of what I'd always known but refused to see. The Thursday operations reviews when he'd come home smelling like her perfume. The Saturday golf games with no decrease in his handicap. The Tuesday lunches that required cologne and his best shirts. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Victor Rhodes's number. We'd exchanged contacts at a dinner party 6 months ago, back when I thought we were two couples building a friendship. His voicemail picked up he was probably working, unaware his Tuesday afternoons had been repurposed. "Victor, it's Lauren Hale," I said after the beep. "I wanted to confirm you'll be home Saturday evening for dinner. It's important you're there. There are some things that need to be discussed with everyone present." I hung up and looked at the evidence spread across the desk. 3 years of lies, documented and verified. Thousands of dollars siphoned from our marriage to fund their relationship. Hundreds of messages proving emotional intimacy that had never belonged to me. Ethan texted at 4:45, "Leaving the client meeting now. Want me to pick up dinner?" I replied, "No need. I'm preparing something special for Saturday." "You're amazing. I love you." I stared at those 3 words, wondering when they'd become just sounds he made, rhythmic noise to maintain the illusion. Then I created one more folder, labeled it "For Victor," and began building a timeline so clear, so undeniable, that even a man in love with his wife couldn't miss what had been happening. The crack in our living room wall had spread to the doorframe now. Tomorrow, I'd start looking for somewhere else to live. Somewhere with walls that didn't know how to break. Thursday morning, I called in sick to work. I needed to prepare for Saturday. But first, I had to sort through years of paperwork stuffed in our filing cabinet: insurance documents, tax returns, anything that might matter in a divorce. That's when I found the shoebox, shoved behind warranties for appliances we no longer owned. Inside were letters from my grandmother, birthday cards from the 90s, and at the bottom, an envelope from First Harbor Bank with my maiden name, Lauren Mitchell. The paper had yellowed at the edges, but the account number was clear, along with a sticky note in my grandmother's shaky handwriting, "For my Lauren, when the time comes." The memory surfaced slowly, like something rising from deep water. Grandma Ellen pulling me aside at my college graduation, pressing papers into my hands. "This is yours, sweetheart. Pod account pays on death. Don't need to do anything. Just keep these papers safe. It'll be there when you need it." She died 2 years later. Sudden stroke while gardening. The funeral had been a blur of casseroles and cousins I barely knew. Everyone focused on supporting my mother through losing her mom. I'd been 25, newly engaged to Ethan, my head full of wedding plans and starting salaries. The shoebox had moved with us 3 times, unopened, forgotten. I drove to First Harbor Bank that afternoon, the old papers trembling in my hands. The building looked different, renovated, modernized, but the logo remained the same. Inside, a young teller directed me to a personal banker named Mrs. Delacroix. "I think I might have an account here," I explained, sliding the yellowed papers across her desk. "From my grandmother. She passed away several years ago." Mrs. Delacroix typed carefully, her manicured nails clicking against the keyboard. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Miss Mitchell, excuse me. Mrs. Hale, yes, there's an account here. POD designation to Lauren Michelle Mitchell. Could I see your identification?" I handed over my driver's license and social security card, then the death certificate I'd grabbed from the same filing cabinet. She studied everything, made copies, typed more. "The account has been dormant but accumulating interest," she said finally. "Your grandmother opened it in 1998 with an initial deposit of $30,000, with compound interest over 27 years. She turned the monitor toward me. The balance showed $60,437. The room seemed to shift, like those moments in movies where the background blurs and only the subject stays in focus. $60,000, sitting there for years while I'd budgeted grocery bills and argued with Ethan about spending. What's the process? Since it's a pod account and we have the death certificate, it's straightforward. The funds transfer to you immediately. Would you like a cashier's check or transfer to another account? Cashier's check, I said quickly. A paper trail Ethan couldn't access through our online banking. 20 minutes later, I walked out with a cashier's check that felt like it weighed 50 pounds. $60,000 of freedom. of options, of not needing to depend on joint accounts or negotiate my exit. Grandma Ellen had given me an escape hatch she couldn't have known I'd need. I went straight to North Bank Lofts, a converted warehouse building downtown where young professionals lived in exposed brick units that photographed well for Instagram. The leasing agent, Marcus, was eager to show me a corner unit on the 4th floor. "It's available immediately," he said, gesturing at the wall of windows overlooking the river. "Previous tenant broke their lease for a job in Portland." "I'll take it." His eyebrows shot up. "Don't you want to see the amenities or discuss pricing? 6 months rent up front. If you can have keys ready by Sunday?" I pulled out the check. I need to move quickly. Money talks in a language everyone understands. Marcus practically sprinted to his office to draw up papers. Next stop, Avery Cole's law office. She'd handled my coworker's divorce last year, turning what could have been a massacre into a clean break. Her office smelled like leather and competence. "I need a divorce lawyer," I said before I'd even sat down. "Most people start with hello," she replied, but she was already pulling out a legal pad. "When did you discover the affair?" "Yesterday, but it's been going on for years." I laid out my evidence folders, watched her eyes sharpen as she flipped through pages. "This is impressively documented. Did you hire a private investigator?" "No, he was just incredibly sloppy. Or incredibly arrogant. Often the same thing." She pulled out her calculator, adding figures from the receipts. $7,000 in marital funds spent on the affair. We can pursue reimbursement. This checking account joint. Everything's joint, except this. I showed her the cashier's check from First Harbor Bank. "Inheritance from my grandmother. Never commingled with marital assets." "Perfect. That's yours free and clear." She studied me over her reading glasses. "You're remarkably calm for someone who just discovered their spouse's infidelity." "I have a plan." "Care to share?" "Saturday night. I'm supposed to apologize to his mistress for being jealous. Her husband will be there." A slow smile spread across Avery's face. "And you're going to tell him instead?" "With evidence?" "I like you. Lauren, retainers 5,000. I'll have papers drawn up by Monday, but I can file emergency orders for asset preservation tomorrow if needed." I wrote her a check from the new account I'd opened on the way to her office. "File them Saturday evening, around 8 p.m. That's specific. That's when I'll be done apologizing." She stood, extended her hand. "I'll have a process server on standby. Anything else?" "The blue pickup truck, the '94 Ford. It's in both our names, but I've been making the payments from my personal checking. Can I take it?" "If your name's on the title and you have keys, it's as much yours as his. Take it whenever you want." I left her office feeling lighter than I had in months. One more stop, Tech Restore, a data recovery service in a strip mall that looked sketchy but had 5-star reviews. "I need deleted messages recovered," I told the technician, sliding Ethan's backup drive across the counter, the one he didn't know I knew about, hidden in his golf bag. "Time frame. Everything from the last 3 years. $200. Ready tomorrow." I paid in cash. Another liberation from joint accounts and shared passwords. By tomorrow, I'd have everything, not just what he'd kept, but what he'd tried to hide. That evening, Ethan came home with flowers, grocery store carnations, the kind he grabbed from the self-checkout line when he remembered he should make an effort. "For Saturday," he said, kissing my cheek. "I know this isn't easy for you." I arranged them in a vase, thinking how appropriate it was, cheap flowers for a cheap apology for a cheap affair. "I want it to be perfect." "It will be. You'll see Bianca's actually really understanding. She probably doesn't even need an apology, but it'll mean a lot that you're offering one." I smiled at the carnations. "Oh, I think everyone will remember Saturday night for a long time." "That's the spirit." "Hey, I'm thinking we should take a trip after this. Reconnect. Maybe that bed and breakfast in Vermont you bookmarked, the bed and breakfast I'd bookmarked for our anniversary, the trip he'd canceled for Bianca's emergency." I touched the cashier's check in my pocket, thinking of my corner unit with river views, of freedom that didn't require permission or joint planning or wondering who he was really texting. "Let's get through Saturday first," I said. Fair enough. He headed for the shower, his second of the day. Oh, Victor texted. He'll definitely be there. Said you called him. I wanted to make sure he heard my apology in person. It's only fair. Ethan beamed like I'd given him a gift. You're really growing, Lauren. This maturity. It's what our marriage needed. After he disappeared into the bathroom, I looked at those sad carnations and thought about growth. How sometimes it means becoming bigger than the pot you've been planted in. How sometimes the only way to grow is to uproot everything and start over in better soil. Saturday was coming. My grandmother's gift sat in my bank account like a patient friend. The evidence waited in labeled folders. The apartment keys would be mine by Sunday. I wasn't just growing. I was gone. Friday felt like preparing for war. While Ethan left for work, actually humming, I methodically dismantled our financial entanglements. First, the bank. I walked into Chase at 9:05 a.m., where personal banker Raymond had helped us open our accounts as newlyweds. I need to remove myself from all joint accounts, I said. Is your husband aware? I'm opening individual accounts. Payroll needs updating before Monday. I kept my voice steady, professional. Also, I need to revoke his authorization on my personal credit cards. It took 40 minutes. Savings, checking, credit cards, every financial thread connecting us severed with signatures and timestamps. My new accounts sat empty except for the $60,000 from grandmother's gift, but empty felt cleaner than shared. Your direct deposit, Raymond asked. Monday's paycheck forward goes here. I tapped the new account number. Nothing joint. Back home, I packed strategically. Not enough for him to notice, but essentials I couldn't leave behind: grandmother's jewelry, my passport, the photo albums from before we met. Each item went into 2 suitcases I'd hidden in the garage behind Christmas decorations. My childhood teddy bear, my college diploma. The watch my father gave me, things that were mine before they became ours. Tech Restore called at noon. Your data's ready. We found a lot. The recovered messages filled 40 pages. 3 years of deleted conversations, including ones from a hidden app called Vault. The messages there were explicit, not just emotional infidelity, but physical details. Meeting times, hotel confirmations. The Marriott on 3rd Street, always room 412. Tuesday afternoons. Thursday evenings. Those Saturday golf mornings. One message from 6 months ago made me print multiple copies. Victor's getting suspicious. Maybe we should cool it. Ethan's response. I'll handle Lauren if you handle him. We deserve this. I organized everything into presentation folders. One for Victor, one for Avery, one for the court, one for backup. Each folder contained timeline with dates, locations, times financial records showing $7,300 spent, photographs from social media cross-referenced with calendar lies, complete message history, including deleted content, hotel receipts I'd found in his gym bag, thinking they were from business trips. The printer ran for 2 hours. I felt like a prosecutor building a case, except I was plaintiff, investigator, and key witness all at once. At 2 p.m., I called a locksmith. I need locks changed Sunday morning, 8 sharp. Sunday's premium rates. That's fine. Cash on completion. Next, the truck. I found the spare keys in Ethan's desk drawer, right where he always kept them. The '94 Ford sat in our driveway like a patient dog. I'd loved that truck since we bought it, but Ethan called it too masculine for me to drive regularly. Sunday morning, while he nursed his hangover from Saturday's revelations, I'd take what was mine. Marcus from North Bank Lofts texted, "Units ready, keys available anytime." I drove over and collected them, running my fingers over the metal teeth that meant freedom. The apartment was perfect, sparse, clean, mine. I stood at those windows overlooking the river and imagined Monday morning coffee without checking if Ethan had texted her yet. My phone buzzed. Ethan, Bianca's excited about tomorrow. She's making your favorite dessert. I almost laughed. Creme brulee wasn't my favorite. It was his. Another detail he'd forgotten while rewriting our history to accommodate her. I responded, "Can't wait to clear the air." Avery called at 4. Papers are drawn, asset preservation filed, process servers on standby for 8 p.m. tomorrow. Perfect. Lauren, are you sure about the public confrontation you could handle this privately? He demanded a public apology. He'll get public truth instead. Fair enough. Document any reactions. Video if possible. But be subtle. Already planned. I'd bought a small voice recorder. Would keep my phone recording in my pocket. Evidence of his reaction. Bianca's admission. Victor's response, all admissible if needed. That evening, I cooked Ethan's favorite meal, rosemary chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, the green beans he liked with almonds. He was confused, but pleased. What's the occasion? Last supper, I said, then quickly added. Before the big apology, want to go in with good energy? He bought it because why wouldn't he? I'd been the good wife for 5 years, supportive to the point of invisibility. He had no idea that while he savored his chicken, I'd already paid 6 months' rent elsewhere. While he praised the potatoes, my suitcases waited in the garage. While he cleared his plate, talking about how mature I was being, my evidence folders sat in my car, locked and loaded. You seem different, he said over dishes. Calmer. I've accepted things, I said, which was true. I'd accepted that our marriage was over, that he'd chosen her months, maybe years ago, that I'd been fighting to save something already dead. Good. That's good. He dried the plates I handed him. Domesticity performed like a play we'd both memorized. Tomorrow will be a fresh start? Definitely a new beginning. He went to bed early, claiming he wanted to be fresh for dinner. I stayed up organizing my final documents, creating a master timeline that would make it impossible for anyone to misunderstand what had happened. 3 years condensed to bullet points, each one a small betrayal building toward tomorrow's revelation. At midnight, I stood in our living room one last time. The crack in the wall had finally reached the corner, spreading like a virus through the paint. Tomorrow night, I'd be in my new apartment with its solid walls and river view. Sunday, the locks would be changed. Monday, my paycheck would hit an account he couldn't touch. I pulled out the folders one more time, checking everything was in order. The blue folder for Victor started with the recovered message where Bianca admitted she was falling for Ethan. The red folder for the lawyer included everything financial. The black folder that was my insurance, containing things I hadn't told anyone about yet. Screenshots from Bianca's work computer when she'd logged into her email at our house, showing messages to her sister about the affair. Ethan's draft email to his brother confessing he was basically already divorced emotionally. My phone showed one new message from Victor. Looking forward to dinner. Bianca says you have something important to discuss? I typed back, yes. Bring an open mind. Everything was ready. The evidence, the apartment, the lawyer, the escape route. All that remained was the performance Ethan had demanded my public apology to his mistress. I'd apologize. All right. I'd apologize for staying silent so long while they made a fool of Victor. I'd apologize for letting them spend our money on their affair. I'd apologize for not seeing the truth sooner. But mostly, I'd apologize to myself, silently, for accepting less than I deserved for so long. And then I'd never apologize for anything again. Saturday arrived wrapped in irony, brilliant sunshine for what Ethan thought would be my surrender. He'd been up since 6, pressed his best shirt twice, even trimmed his beard with the precision he usually reserved for job interviews. I watched him prepare for my humiliation like other husbands might prepare for anniversary dinners. You should wear the green dress, he suggested, hovering as I did my makeup. Bianca loves that color. I wore black instead, funeral appropriate. The drive to Bianca and Victor's house took 12 minutes. Ethan filled every second with coaching. Remember to make eye contact. Acknowledge specific incidents. Don't make excuses, just own your behavior and apologize. The folders sat in my purse, weight like stones. My phone recorded everything from my pocket. The voice recorder clipped inside my jacket captured each word in duplicate. If this was going to be theater, I'd document every performance. Their house glowed with careful staging candles on every surface. jazz playing softly, the dining table set with wedding china. Bianca had dressed for victory in cream silk, her smile practiced and generous. She kissed Ethan's cheek before turning to me, playing magnanimous hostess to the defeated wife. "Lauren, you look lovely," she lied. Victor stood by the fireplace, wine glass already half empty. He was shorter than Ethan, quieter, with the kind of tired eyes that suggested he'd been sleeping poorly. When we shook hands, his palm was damp. "Thank you for coming," I told him, meaning it. "Bianca said you wanted to talk." His voice carried an edge of confusion, maybe concern. "After dinner?" Ethan interrupted, steering us toward the carefully arranged appetizers. "Let's enjoy Bianca's cooking first." But I was done with their timeline. "Actually, I'd prefer to address this now, while everyone's clear-headed." Bianca's smile flickered. Ethan's jaw tightened, but Victor nodded, setting down his wine. "I appreciate directness." "Lauren," Ethan's voice carried warning. "We discussed—" "You're right, Ethan. You were absolutely right." I moved to the center of their living room, command position. "I do owe an apology." The room relaxed incrementally. Bianca settled into her chair like a queen accepting tribute. Ethan's shoulders dropped with relief. Only Victor remained tense, watching me with those tired eyes. "Ethan says I've been jealous, suspicious, immature." I pulled out the blue folder. And he's right. I should have spoken up sooner. "Lauren," Ethan started, but I kept going. "Victor, I apologize to you first and foremost." I handed him the folder. "I've watched your wife and my husband carry on an affair for 3 years, and I stayed silent. I let you live in ignorance while they met every Tuesday at Harbor Lane Bistro, every Thursday evening for their operations reviews, every other Saturday for golf." The room crystallized. Victor opened the folder slowly, his face draining as he saw the first photo, Ethan and Bianca, her hand in his, dated 3 months ago. "What is this?" Bianca's voice pitched high, brittle. "The truth." I pulled out the red folder. $7,300 spent from marital funds on your relationship. Hotel rooms at the Marriott, always room 412. Gifts delivered to your office. Wine that cost more than our mortgage payment. Victor had reached the messages. His hands shook as he read, "Can't wait for Tuesday. V thinks I'm at Pilates." "These are fabricated," Ethan said, but his voice cracked. "Lauren, what are you doing?" "Apologizing." I turned to him with the black folder. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. The deleted messages you thought were gone." I opened to a page, read aloud. "Last night was incredible. Elle actually believed the client emergency story." Bianca stood, reaching for Victor's folder. "This is insane. These are taken out of context. 3:47 a.m. January 15th. I recited from memory. "Last night was... we should talk. 3:52. I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. 3:58. Delete these. Elle might check." Victor looked at his wife. "January 15th was our anniversary. You said you had food poisoning." The doorbell rang, 8 p.m. exactly. Nobody moved, so I answered it. The process server looked bored until he saw the frozen tableau inside. "Ethan Ward." Ethan didn't respond, so I pointed. The server handed him the envelope. "You've been served." "Served?" Ethan's voice barely existed. "Lauren, we can talk about this. Asset preservation and divorce papers." I announced to the room. "My lawyer filed them an hour ago. The locks change tomorrow morning. Your things will be in the garage." "Lauren, please!" Bianca started toward me, but Victor's voice cut through. "How long?" He wasn't looking at anyone, just the timeline I'd created. "How long?" "Victor." Bianca reached for him, but he stepped back. 3 years, I answered for her. Maybe longer emotionally, but physically for 3 years. Victor laughed sharp, bitter, nothing like humor. 3 years. 3 years of marriage counseling where you made me think I was the problem. "It wasn't like that," Bianca tried. Tuesday Pilates, Thursday book clubs, Saturday shopping trips. Victor's voice built with each lie recalled. I tracked your location once. You called me controlling, paranoid, said I needed therapy for my trust issues. You did need therapy, Bianca snapped, then caught herself. For trusting you. Victor held up the hotel receipts. Room 412. Always room 412. What, did they give you a loyalty discount? Ethan finally found his voice. This is entrapment. You set us up. I documented. I pulled out my phone, showing it was still recording. Everything here is real. Ethan, your messages, your receipts, your lies. I just organized them. You went through my computer. The one you left logged in. The backup drive in your golf bag. The deleted messages you never actually deleted. I smiled, felt it sharp on my face. You want to talk about betrayal. We're not divorced yet, Ethan said desperately. So this is marital property. Actually, I pulled out the cashier's check receipt. I'm quite financially stable. Inheritance from my grandmother. Never commingled with marital assets. My lawyer says hello. By the way, Bianca had started crying pretty tears that probably usually worked. Lauren, I never meant… Yes, you did. Every Tuesday for 3 years. You meant it. I gathered my purse, left the folders spread across their coffee table like crime scene photos. Victor, Avery Cole is my lawyer. She can recommend someone for you. Lauren. Ethan grabbed my arm. You can't just we have a life together. 5 years. We had 5 years. You spent 3 of them with her. I removed his hand, finger by finger. The truck's mine. My name's on the title. The house is both of ours, but I'm sure the court will consider the money you spent on Bianca when dividing assets. Where will you go? His question sounded genuinely lost. Forward. I walked to the door, paused for the last word I'd rehearsed all week. I'm sorry for one more thing. Ethan, I'm sorry I wasted 5 years believing you were the man you pretended to be. The door closed on chaos. Bianca sobbing. Ethan shouting about manipulation. Victor's voice rising with years of suppressed suspicion now validated. But I didn't stop to listen. My car started smooth, the engine carrying me away from the wreckage toward my riverside apartment where no one had keys but me. My phone exploded with texts before I'd reached the first stop sign. I turned it off. Tomorrow there would be logistics, lawyers, the business of untangling 5 years. Tonight, there was just freedom and the quiet satisfaction of delivering exactly the apology I'd promised. Everyone got what they deserved, especially me. I drove straight to North Bank Lofts, my new keys heavy in my pocket like anchors to a different life. The parking garage was quiet, empty of the kind of drama I'd just left behind. My unit on the 4th floor waited, sparse and clean, unmarked by anyone else's presence. The first thing I did was pour a glass of wine from a bottle I'd bought just for myself, no checking the price against our budget, no saving it for a special occasion that would involve them. This was the special occasion, the first night of my life without Ethan's shadow. My phone stayed off until 10 p.m. When I finally powered it on, 43 messages waited. I deleted Ethan's without reading, ignored Bianca's calls, but opened the single text from Victor. Thank you for having the courage I didn't. At 10:30, I made a call of my own. Execute Phase 2, I told the waiting contractor. By 10:45, my locksmith was at the house premium emergency rates worth every penny. I met him there, pulling into the driveway just as he arrived. Ethan's car was gone, probably still at Bianca's, dealing with the aftermath. Perfect timing. Change everything, I instructed. Front door, back door, garage side entrance, new keys, new cylinders. While he worked, I moved through the house with surgical precision. His clothes went into garbage bags, sorted roughly work suits in one, casual wear in another. His toiletries swept from the bathroom into a box, the golf clubs he loved more than our anniversary dinners, his vinyl collection, the expensive coffee maker only he used. Everything went to the garage in neat, labeled containers. I kept finding evidence of her a hair tie that wasn't mine behind the nightstand, a lipstick shade I'd never wear in his jacket pocket. The second phone charger he'd claimed was for travel. Each item went into a special box marked Evidence Attorney. The blue Ford pickup was easier. I'd had my spare keys ready, and at 11:20 p.m., I simply drove it away. My name was on the title. I'd made 6 months of payments from my personal checking. And possession, as they say, is 9/10 of the law. I parked it at North Bank Lofts, in my designated spot, and took an Uber back to finish the house. By midnight, the locks were changed. 3 sets of new keys, one for me, one for my lawyer, one for the eventual real estate agent. The locksmith left with cash and a signature on work done after separation papers were filed. Everything legal, everything documented. I walked through the house one more time, seeing it differently now. The crack in the living room wall looked like freedom. The kitchen where I'd cooked his favorite meals felt like a museum of someone else's life. Our bedroom, their bedroom, really. Considering what I now knew had happened, there smelled like strangers. My phone rang, Ethan, probably just discovering the locks. I answered on speaker while continuing to pack his things. Hello? What did you do to the locks? Changed them. Your belongings are in the garage. The code is your mother's birthday. You can't just, this is my house. Our house, which is why my lawyer filed for exclusive occupancy pending division of assets. Given the documentation of adultery and financial misappropriation, she's confident the judge will be sympathetic. Financial what, Lauren? This is insane. Come home and we'll talk. I am home, my new home, where you're not welcome. You planned this. His voice cracked between rage and panic. This whole week, you were planning this. 3 years. Ethan, you had 3 years of Tuesdays to plan a different outcome. Silence stretched until I heard another voice in the background. Bianca. Probably. Offering comfort he no longer deserved from me. The truck, he said suddenly. You took my truck. My truck. Check the registration. Check who's been making payments. Check whose name comes first on the title. That's theft. That's ownership. My lawyer can explain the difference if you're confused. Your lawyer? You keep saying that like how long have you been planning this? Since Wednesday. Funny what clarity a person can achieve in 4 days when they finally see the truth. I taped another box shut, labeled it Kitchen Personal Items. Your golf tournament trophy is in box 3. The watch my parents gave you for our wedding is in your jewelry box. I kept nothing that was yours before we met. And everything that was ours will be divided by the court, minus the $7,300 you spent on your affair, which my lawyer will be pursuing as dissipation of marital assets. He cursed, creative combinations I'd never heard from him before. The man who'd criticized my language when I'd stubbed my toe suddenly had a vocabulary like a dock worker. Are you done? I asked when he paused for breath. Victor left her. The words came out like a weapon he thought would hurt me. He's packing right now. She's destroyed. Is that what you wanted? What I wanted was a faithful husband. What I got was a liar who spent our money on another woman while gaslighting me into thinking I was paranoid. I surveyed the garage, his possessions organized better than he'd ever managed himself. Victor deserved the truth. So did I. We could have worked through this. No, you could have not done it in the first place. Working through it was never my job. Where are you staying? Away from you. Lauren, please. 5 years. Goodbye, Ethan. I hung up and blocked his number, then Bianca's, then his mother's, his brother's, the mutual friends who'd start calling soon with their opinions and mediations. The only number I kept active was my lawyer's and Victor's him because he was a victim too, deserving of solidarity if he needed it. 1 a.m. Found me back at North Bank Lofts, the truck safely in the garage, new keys on my new kitchen counter. I'd brought only what mattered: the photos from before Ethan, my grandmother's jewelry, the quilts my mother had made, the coffee mug my best friend gave me in college that said, "Nevertheless, she persisted." The apartment was so quiet I could hear the river 4 floors down, no tension humming in the walls, No careful navigation around someone else's mood. No checking if tonight was a Bianca night or a Lauren night. Just space that was entirely mine, where every decision from where to put the coffee maker to what to watch on TV belonged to me alone. I sat on the floor, no furniture yet except the bed I'd had delivered that afternoon, and unpacked the one box I'd brought tonight. My things looked different here, smaller but more significant, like artifacts from another civilization. The photo of my grandmother went on the mantel. She smiled out at me. Ellen Mitchell, who'd worked 3 jobs to raise her family, who'd somehow saved $30,000 for a granddaughter she'd barely see grow up. "Thank you," I told her photo. "You gave me more than money. You gave me choices." My phone buzzed with an email from Avery. Locks changed assets secured good. Temporary support hearing scheduled for Thursday. Get some rest. Rest. The word felt foreign after months of lying awake wondering where he really was, who he was really with, why I wasn't enough. Tonight, I would sleep knowing exactly where Ethan was locked out of the house he'd contaminated, begging shelter from the woman he'd chosen over me. Let her comfort him. Let her wash his clothes and cook his meals and wonder, late at night, if he'd do the same to her someday. I made my bed with new sheets that had never touched him, brushed my teeth in a bathroom he'd never see, and for the first time in 3 years, didn't check my phone before sleeping. There was no one I needed to track, no lies I needed to untangle, no evidence I needed to gather. The $60,000 from my grandmother sat in my account like a guardian angel in numerical form. Tomorrow I'd buy furniture, groceries, a new life. Tonight, I had everything I needed, walls that didn't know betrayal, keys that only I possessed, and the absolute certainty that I'd never again apologize for seeing the truth. Sunday morning arrived quiet and clean, no alarm needed because my body wasn't exhausted from pretending anymore. Sunlight streamed through the wall of windows, painting geometric patterns on the hardwood floor, no one else's schedule to consider. No careful choreography around someone else's mood. Just me and the river view and the intoxicating absence of lies. At 8 a.m. I signed the papers Avery had messengered over power of attorney for the divorce proceedings. Agreements for asset division. Authorization for her to handle all communication with Ethan's lawyer when he inevitably hired one. My signature looked different somehow. Stronger. More definite. Initial here if you want to pursue the dissipated assets. Her note instructed. I initialed with satisfaction. $7,000 might not break him, but it would remind him that betrayal has a price tag. An email from my mother waited in my inbox. Heard from Martha Henderson that she saw Ethan at a hotel last night looking upset. Everything okay. I typed back, everything's perfect. I'll call you later. Because I would tell her, eventually, when the sharp edges had worn smooth enough to handle without cutting myself. For now, the truth lived between me, Ethan, Bianca, Victor, and the legal system. I spent Sunday afternoon buying life, a couch that no one else would ever claim half of. Dishes that had never served lies alongside dinner, towels that would only ever dry my own tears, if any came. Each purchase was a small declaration of independence. This is mine. Only mine. Forever mine. The furniture store clerk asked if my husband would want to see the couch before delivery. No husband, I said, and the words tasted like expensive chocolate. Just me. Monday came with the satisfying electronic chime of my first paycheck hitting my individual account. The number looked the same, but felt heavier, fuller, because every penny belonged to decisions I'd make alone. HR had processed my changes efficiently, no questions asked beyond the legal minimum. At lunch, my coworker Janine stopped by my desk. You look different. New skincare routine. I lied, though in a way it was true. I'd removed the toxic layer that had been suffocating me for years. Victor texted that afternoon. Divorce papers filed this morning. Found out about 2 other affairs before Ethan. Thank you for opening my eyes. 2 others. I stared at the message, feeling retroactive sympathy for past versions of us, sitting at dinner parties, hosting barbecues, playing at being happy couples while secrets rotted beneath the surface. Tuesday arrived Ethan's Sacred Harbor Lane Day, and I celebrated by having lunch alone at my desk, eating a sandwich that cost $4 instead of funding someone else's affair. Avery called at 2:15 p.m., right when Ethan would normally be meeting Bianca. He hired representation, she reported. Bradley Cornish from Cornish and Associates. Is he good? He's expensive, which works in our favor. Ethan's about to learn what actually costs money when you can't siphon from joint accounts. Papers rustled through the phone. They're proposing meditation. No. That's what I told them. My client has nothing to mediate. The evidence is clear, the financial misconduct documented, the adultery established. We go to court. When preliminary hearing in 3 weeks, temporary support orders Thursday. You don't need to attend either if you don't want to face him. I've faced him for 5 years. I can handle a few more hours. But I didn't need to face him, and that was the point. Wednesday passed, then Thursday, then a week, then 2. My life developed new rhythms: coffee on the balcony watching the river, work where I focused fully instead of checking my phone for lies, evenings that belonged entirely to me. I joined a book club, started taking pottery classes, called old friends I'd neglected while managing Ethan's ego. The house sold in 3 weeks' quick sale to a young couple who loved the bones of it despite the crack in the wall. My half of the equity, plus the dissipated assets the judge ordered Ethan to repay, plus my grandmother's gift meant I could buy something small but entirely mine. I chose a cottage near the river, tiny but perfect, with a garden my grandmother would have loved. 3 months later, the divorce finalized. I sat in court wearing a new suit I'd bought with my own money, watching Ethan shrink into himself as the judge reviewed the evidence of financial misconduct. Bianca wasn't there. They'd ended things within weeks. Apparently, once the thrill of secrecy dissolved into the mundane reality of being with someone who'd already proven he couldn't be trusted. Decree granted, the judge announced. Marriage dissolved. Dissolved. Like it had never been solid at all. Just something pretending at permanence while secretly evaporating. I walked out of the courthouse into autumn sunshine. Officially Lauren Mitchell again. My phone buzzed with congratulations from friends who'd chosen sides without my asking. From Victor, who'd gotten his own freedom the week before. From my mother, who'd finally stopped asking if I was sure. But the last text was from a number I didn't recognize. This is Bianca. I'm sorry. For everything. I deleted it without responding. Some apologies come too late to matter, especially from people who never really meant them. She wasn't sorry for the affair. She was sorry it cost her everything. The distinction mattered. That night, I stood in my cottage and hung the last picture, my grandmother's portrait, above the fireplace where the crack used to be in the old house. The walls here were solid, no fissures spreading like prophecies. The keys on my counter belonged only to me. The truck in my driveway had only ever been mine. Really, despite what the paperwork used to say. My phone sat silent on the table. No one to track, no lies to uncover, no evidence to gather. Just the peaceful quiet of a life without betrayal, bought with $60,000 and the courage to stop apologizing for other people's sins. I poured a glass of wine, the good stuff now, because I was worth it, and toasted the empty room to Grandma Ellen, who gave me more than money. To Victor, who deserved better. To Bianca, who got what she wanted until she didn't. To Ethan, who taught me the difference between loving someone and loving the idea of them. The wine tasted like freedom, costs expensive but worth every penny. I never did apologize for being paranoid. Turns out I wasn't paranoid at all. I was right. And that's the one thing none of them could forgive. The cottage settled around me as evening darkened to night. Walls solid and sure, holding only truth. Somewhere across town, Ethan was probably learning to cook his own dinners, wash his own clothes, manage his own life without a wife to blame for his failures. Bianca was probably seeking the next married man to validate her worth. Victor was probably, like me, discovering who he was without the weight of betrayal. But none of that was my concern anymore. I'd apologized for the last time, packed my evidence away with the divorce decree, and started the life my grandmother's gift had made possible, one where the only person I needed to trust was myself. The crack in the wall had spread until the whole structure fell. But I wasn't in that house anymore. I was home. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect with others who understand what it's like to rebuild after betrayal. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts and experiences. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is let others know they're not alone in their journey to freedom.